Hi there. So this week, I want to talk a little bit about anger. And before I do, I just want to mention, I'm a dietitian. I'm not a therapist, but I talk a lot about emotion because emotion often ends up being a big player in how we work with whatever's going on in the moment. And particularly when we're experiencing strong emotions that we feel are negative or scary or uncomfortable, they really can distort how we treat our bodies. They can distort how we feed ourselves or don't feed ourselves. They can distort how we think about ourselves. And so that's just why I'm so concerned with emotions so often. And I have been experiencing a lot of different emotions, a lot of really strong emotions over a significant period of time. And I find it helpful to just talk about these things. And if it's useful to you, I'm very glad. If not, perhaps it's useful to someone you can share with. But last week and the week before, I was experiencing a lot of anger. And part of how I knew was that whereas I usually use my horn in my car about twice a year, I used it twice in one day. So that's just an indicator to me. Another indicator was that I wasn't singing and playing music as much because I felt so much stuff boiling underneath the surface that whenever I had a chance, I was kind of quiet and cautious. Again, in the car, usually have music on, singing along, but these weeks I found myself just not even playing anything, not even paying attention to anything but driving slowly as much as possible. And I realized in a discussion with some other folks about anger and how it can be sort of like a riptide, and using that analogy can help us work with the anger. And this can go for really any strong emotion that feels like it has the potential to distort your experience, to provoke reactive behavior, to threaten relationships, maybe even threaten your safety, right? I mean, because we are capable of doing harm to ourselves and to other people. And I love the water, I love swimming, and I find this metaphor of the riptide to be really helpful because it can be so counterintuitive. And I don't know if you've ever been caught in a riptide. It's a little bit scary because you become aware of forces pushing you away from the shore. Generally, we're most comfortable swimming in the ocean when we feel like we can leave whenever we want. And so a riptide is the sort of way that water that's been pushed toward the shore escapes back toward the ocean. And if you happen to be caught in this very thin stream of water, you're going to be pushed back. And if you have that experience, your natural reaction is to try to swim toward shore. And the advice that I have followed when caught in a riptide is to let it carry you, because what it actually feels like under the water is almost like being in a boiling pot, and you can't even tell what direction the currents are going in. If you were to follow your instinct to try to swim back to shore through that force that's pushing you back out into the water, usually what happens is that people get exhausted and then they get pulled underneath. And that's how most drownings happen. And so the guidance around a riptide is to allow it to carry you until it weakens. And then once it weakens and you feel this in your body, you can swim parallel to the shore to come out of the riptide. And then at that point, when you're not pushing directly against the thing that's pushing you out to the water, you can safely get into shore. And obviously this takes a lot of presence of mind to recognize, one, something's changed, I might be in danger. Two, my instinct is to behave in a way that is going to put me in greater danger. Three, I have to go against my instinct to be carried away from where I want to go until it's clear that I can safely step out of this, move out of this current, and eventually get to where I want to go. And I find this to be such a useful metaphor because anger is so uncomfortable. There are so many emotions that are uncomfortable, but anger is very particular. And I personally, as I was experiencing it, was like vibrating. My body felt like it was vibrating. I couldn't get warm. I could not feel settled. And I realized in a way I'm capable of doing harm as a result of the force of my anger. And so, keeping this analogy in mind, I tried to move through this time, and it lasted several days. It was really uncomfortable, to allow it to just carry me, to practice refraining, to practice non-reaction. Let it carry me, because I was just caught in it. And if I was going to fight it, I was going to get pulled under. And if I was not conscious of what was happening, it would run the risk of becoming sort of a meaningless experience. But just allowing it to carry me until it became clear, until the force of some of the anger dissipated, and then I could come out of that current, it became clear to me what was actually happening. And in some cases it was, anger at the selfish actions of other people, anger at the seeming simplicity with which, we could treat others with respect, and yet our failure to do so. And so as the anger dissipated, as I allowed it to move through, I could contact this sadness that was underneath it. I could sort of stand in awe and respect of the force of my anger and the potential for destruction, and not think that I'm any different than someone who is actively doing harm, but still practicing refraining. And as a result of moving through that, consciously having an emotional experience that felt like it taught me something about myself. And it taught me about just being human in a time of tumult and suffering and drastic change. So I wanted to share that with you and see if it hits a nerve for you in a helpful way, I hope. I would love to hear your thoughts. That's all for now, and I'll see you next time.